This is Space Cat's Peace Turtles, the unofficial podcast for Fantasy Flight's Twilight Imperium.
Episode 73, Knockout Map Analysis.
TKO!
Music by Ben Prunty, featuring Matt Martins and Hunter Donaldson.
Wild. Well, we have an episode to do today, Matt. We have an episode to do now. It's time to do it. It's time. Let's get ready to...
Okay, let's make it just like last week. So you start talking, and then I'm just gonna randomly have a different conversation on top of you. Does that sound good? So you just go ahead. You go.
Okay, so... and it could be about anything.
Just anything. It doesn't matter.
So I just want to talk a little bit at the top here about how much I
direct
love
hit
Star
is
Trek.
a pretty good action card.
Star
I don't
Trek
know if I
Next
agree
Generation
fully
is
about
my
direct
favorite.
Hit being number 64.
Deep Space Nine is kind of obviously
63.
the best one.
It's probably going to be
it's really
bit over. They've heard enough of that. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 73.
Here, let's just pause. Let's just pause for a second, not say anything, and then start laughing.
Oh yeah. Last week was weird, huh?
So last week was a bit messed up. The edit got a little chewed up.
Right.
The dog got a hold of it. And
I want to say, if you listened to last week's episode with the audio bad, I don't know why you did that. Not to say it's your fault, not putting the blame on you, but it's a weird adventure you took yourself on.
Right.
To listen to an hour and a half of desynced audio. That's super weird. But that being said, plenty of people listened to it not messed up, because I actually did fix it about 2 hours later. The problem is podcast feeds work weird. So this is your PSA too. If you tried to listen to last week's episode and it was a garbage dumpster fire after about the 40-minute mark, it was fine up until about 40 minutes, and then it very quickly started to fall apart. You can fix it. And if you want to listen to episode 72, which is Hunter and I's favorite episode we've ever recorded, it is the funniest thing we've ever done, and you should go back and listen to it. It is fixed now, but on your podcast app, what you may need to do is unsubscribe from Space Cat's Peace Turtles, restart the app, and then resubscribe to Space Cat's Peace Turtles. That will fully remove the download from your device, and then re-download the episode that was uploaded later. So that is how you make sure you've removed the old MP3 and you get the new MP3. So please go back and listen to that episode. And I am just sorry from the depths of my heart that I messed that one up. I tried to speed edit it first thing in the morning on Tuesday, and I goobered.
He was a sleepy boy. He was a sleepy boy from all of the Twilight Imperium content we have been trying to give you.
Those of you who don't know much or who do know about audio stuff, it was we had split the recording with JattaPake into two pieces, and the second piece, somehow his file got messed up and got into a different sample rate, and so it over time drifts. So when I went to our sync point where we start all at the same time, that was correct. But then basically, because time is an enigma, he talked a little bit faster than us. Mm-hmm. Because that's how technology decides to work sometimes.
Yeah, it is a bummer. For the record, yeah, definitely our favorite episode that we've ever done.
Go back and listen to it.
It's so much fun.
It's great.
It's a good topic. JattaPake was a great guest. It sucks that if you listen to the bad version, it sounds like we're being a jerk to
really
JattaPake.
Mean to JattaPake.
Yeah,
we just ignore him and laugh randomly and ignore his comments pretty much constantly.
Because honestly, us having JattaPake on the show is something we've anticipated for a really long time, and it just kind of suddenly happened. I didn't even quite know that that's what we were about to record. It was like you were like, and I didn't get to prep.
Yeah, and I didn't get to prep him fully on his end of getting the tech to do everything it needed to do. So it was a little bit of a rush job. So that's our bad. I want to apologize, but let's get into this week's episode.
Yeah, so this week's episode is going to be a little bit weird, I think, for people that are in the tournament, and I hope you guys do not panic. But we did realize that if we try and that the semis are only 3 games, so also, by the way, by the time you listen to this, the first game of the semis is going to have already happened.
Right. We're recording before. We're saving the discussion for all 3 episodes for next week.
You mean of all 3 games?
All 3 games. What did I say? Episodes. Sorry. All 3 games will be next week. And so this week we had to kind of find a little bit something different to squeeze in here. And honestly, we're going to want to dig into those semis games pretty hard.
Yeah.
Because the difference with the prelims is we had 18 games to analyze. A little bit of each is enough. But with the semis, we need to like really figure out what's going on. And we're trying to get a better judge of these winners too, right? The 3 players that win these semis games are going to be 3 of our finalists.
Right.
And if you don't know the structure of the tournament, that today's going to help with that, because today we're going to be revealing the knockout map.
Right.
Which the knockout round, for those of you not fully familiar with the schedule, we're doing these 3 semi games, 3 6-player games, 3 winners go to the finals. The remaining 15 players will get reshuffled into basically a double elimination semis that we're calling the knockout round. So then we will do 3 5-player games. So the map we're going to talk about today is a special 5-player map for the tournament.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to want to dig in. We're going to want to really start to learn, like, talk about the 3 winners, because the 3 winners are finalists. So we really are going to want to like trace that map of like how they got to their win, what kind of player they are, and what we might be able to expect from them in the finals. So next week is going to be a big episode for the tournament. This one is to get the knockout stuff out of the way. And I don't know, I think of these map reveals as only halfway tournament stuff, right? Like, you don't have to care about the tournament to have some interest in these maps.
Right. Anybody can play on these maps, and we release them very publicly. And I don't know, I think they're fun. And I think it's crazy that we've been able to come up with this many maps that have such a uniform like concept to them.
I'll say this. Once we also then reveal the finals map, that's about all I got.
Yeah.
Those 4 maps in terms of symmetrical design maps, which was the goal for this tournament. Every map was supposed to be some form of symmetry across the pie slices. Obviously, balance is different. They're not all perfectly balanced pie slices, but they are symmetrical pie slices. Mm-hmm. But after these last 2, I do not have many more ideas that can shake things up as far as symmetry is concerned.
It will be Matt's final map. I would not expect to see Matt really work on a map ever again.
I'll never make another map again.
He's out after that. This is it. This is his. This is kind of the,
Actually, I'm more afraid of the opposite, where I'm like, now I'm itching to make crazy maps.
Right. Yeah.
Now I'm going to turn into like Mac Part 2, right? And me and Mac are just going to go off of these crazy tirades and make maps that are just straight lines. It's just one row of system tiles.
Oh,
Bring
yeah.
it on.
Sure. That doesn't make any sense, but okay. Matt, what is the title? Do you have a really good title kind of tagline for this map that kind of gives you an idea of what the general concept? Well, actually, whoa. But actually, before you even introduce that, obviously, the concept with just to kind of do a little bit of recap, the concept of the prelims map was to be as balanced as we could possibly work it out, because it was going to be played on the most times. With no real equidistant systems. All the equidistant hexes were the anomalies.
Or a blank space.
It was
just nothing. It was nothingness in the anomalies. Everyone had a clear path to Mechatol Rex.
Right. Which was nice, because it's kind of like, it's a very like a safer map, something that anybody could play on and I think have a pretty good time, a good game. Not super punishing or super scary.
But still very combative in the center of the map, right? Like at first everyone's reaction was like, no one's ever going to fight. But then it turned out, well, there's constant brawls surrounding Mechatol Rex on that map all the time.
Right. And then the semis map is kind of the opposite, right? I mean, we're taking all the high value stuff and putting it equidistant, essentially. And
I can't wait to actually see it get played on, but we can kind of make a lot of judgments that like it's and just hearing from other people talking about games that have been played on it, people testing it. It's like a weird. Everyone jumps into ring 2 and starts kind of like circling like sharks and just it's a freaking knife fight
right.
between 6 different people. I mean, it's just a nonstop slugfest.
Right. And in that one, all the anomalies are basically placed in the, is it right or left from the home system?
I don't even remember. I'd have to pull it up. But regardless, it's in the outer ring. So all the anomalies are kind of non-starters. They're just out of the way.
Yeah. So it feels like the semis map to me feels like a bare knuckle brawl where it's just open for you to fight and get into it. Yeah. And there are lots of points of contention. Yes. So, with all of that being said, what is the concept for the knockout map?
So the biggest thing at play here is in the game, there are only 5 anomalies.
Yes.
So anytime I've been trying to balance a map with 6 players, there's always this weird situation of like, so what do we do to the 6th? If I'm putting the asteroid by this player and the gravity rift by this player, someone is going to end up with no anomaly. Right. Near them or in their area or whatever. So then someone always ends up getting kind of screwed over with the anomaly, secret objective, or whatever. But this is a 5-player map, and that means everybody gets to have an anomaly. So I decided to just give everybody an anomaly. Everybody just gets one right there in front of them, right in the way. This map is defined by the symmetry of we've played with anomalies out of the way. We've played with anomalies in equidistance. Now it's time to play with anomalies right in your face, directly in front of your home system on the way to Mechatol Rex.
Right.
And trying to balance a map against that, because obviously a asteroid field is weighted differently than a supernova when it is in the way of you and your path to Mechatol or whatever. So this map is an attempt at that, and I'm pretty happy with it.
So this thus far though, this map sounds really mean. What is the caveat? What do we have to say about the other?
So
spaces?
you asked what is the title of this map? This map, outside of the fact that all of the things in front of home systems are anomalies, we're calling this Captain Crunch. Oops, all planets. Oh, beans. We dropped the planets all over the map, and it's just all. They're spilling everywhere. They got all over. They're just completely surrounding everything. It's all planets. There are only 2 system tiles that are not anomalies, that are not planets, and that's the empty wormholes. Every single other... There's been a lot of debates about the semis map and whether or not it's legal. Because if you were to build a cooperative or competitive map, everyone gets 3 blue tiles and 2 red tiles, right? So every red-backed tile is forced in, which means in a 6-player game, 2 blue tiles are taken out. And the semis map broke that. My justification was, well, the pre-made maps in the Learn to Play book break those rules as well. The 6-player map in the Learn to Play book doesn't even have the gravity rift in it. So clearly, Fantasy Flight has already established a world where if you are doing a pre-made map, it does not have to follow the conventions of a competitive build, the standard rules as written build. And since we're using, first off, should be said, if you're not looking at the map already, which there will be a link to the image of this in the Reddit post, and I'll post it on Discord. It'll be everywhere I can get it. But this map, we are using the Warp Zone hyperlane system.
Right.
This is our preferred method for 5-player maps. We don't like the trade good method. Mm-hmm. This essentially just cuts one pie slice out. Everyone has equal opportunity like they would in a 6-player game. I do not take the point that like removing planets removes the chance of whatever X things. In this one, all we did was remove empty systems and Vefut and Saudor. Right? That's all we took out for this map. Everything else is in there. So you're not missing any traits. You're not missing any tech specialties, anything like that. So we like the hyperlane. It is a little visually confusing for some newer players, but because this is the knockout game, we're not talking about newer players here. We're talking about players that should be able to handle the curveball visually that the Warp Zone tile gives.
Yeah.
I don't expect this to be a cause for concern for any of these players.
Right. And also, I want to say something about the notes that you have. I think these are probably the best notes that we've put out for a map. Yeah. We have marked every space that you can get to with it color-coded from your home system based on how many spaces away it is. Yep. What we've excluded is we haven't done anything. If something's more than 3 spaces away, we did not bother to mark it because that's crazy. That doesn't even make sense. Right. That would just end up us marking every hex for everyone.
Yeah.
And we also did not, we assumed that you would be able to take the 2 hexes that were 1 space away from your home system.
So we don't mark that for somebody else.
Right.
So if I'm 3 away from the system adjacent to your home, I'm not marking that as a 3 away. That's yours by right. That's your pie slice. The problem with this map, and the reason it was so much harder to define, is because so many of the pie slices are not a typical pie slice, right? The person with the supernova in front of their home system, the next planet on the path to Mechatol Rex is no more theirs than any of their neighbors. They are 3 spaces away from that unless they're Muat.
Right.
I mean, I guess you could throw in a Muat caveat there, but beyond that, everybody else is just as far away from them as possible. So we had to define the pie slices a little bit differently. So we went with this, if you're looking at the map, this 1, 2, 3 method.
Right.
Now, sometimes 3s and 2s are on the same spot, but if it's 1 spot away, we didn't count that. So the math is going to get really funky, but that's because at the end of the day, all of these numbers are meant to just try to help inform, but they are in no way like indicative of what an actual game will look like. Because for some of these people, there are 5 system tiles that are 3 spots away from them, and we included all of those numbers in their 3 systems away count.
Right.
You are not going to get all 5 of those systems probably ever in a game.
Right.
So it's not fair to count it, but it helps kind of tell the story of what's going on with each of these different system tiles.
Right. And I think with this map, I think it would be a good time to kind of get out this idea that if you have the map before, looking at the numbers that we put down as a guide, I think is less important than you looking at the map and being like, okay, what am I going to try and go after?
Yes.
On
Which
this
direction
map?
am I going to go?
Right. What direction makes the most sense for me to go? Because I can't get all the things anyways.
Right. And for most players, these anomalies bisect your options. You can go left or you can go right.
Yes.
You very rarely, or you usually don't want to go straight forward. So you got to choose a direction. Maybe some factions can go both, but generally speaking, most people are going to pick one direction.
And also, one thing I want to spell out before we start breaking down the individual slices. I think the smartest thing that you did, Matt, here, and this is you completely, probably Root a little. We should give Root some credit here because he did give some feedback.
Yep.
But what I really love is that each home system on either side has a 2-planet system that's pretty good, and then a 1-planet system that is not so great. The 2-planet system, the better system that neighbors your home system, is going to your right, or
yes.
That would be a way to put it. Yeah,
to
your right, meaning that the direction you want to immediately expand is towards the player that you don't have speaker advantage against. That player.
For people
has
not familiar with speaker advantage, that's to say the person on your right gets to almost always pick their strategy card before you, which means they get a leg up on you. They're going to take something from you that you want. If you were hoping to get tech, they have the opportunity to get tech before you. So yeah, you would be expanding to your better system in the direction of the player who can lord a little bit over you.
Yes. And I think that talking about concepts like that as far as balance go are maybe even more important than just crunching the numbers. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think sometimes we get a little lost in the weeds just evaluating everything based on the raw data of what are the numbers that are available to me. Because as long as those are within a certain range, I think basically anything is viable.
Right. And this map proves that. I mean, this map, crunching the numbers, you can break your brain trying to figure out what is realistically an option. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of, you have to start taking in different things into consideration because the numbers fall apart really fast for a lot of these slices.
Right. And they are pretty complicated. Every slice has a breakdown of the what is available. Go ahead.
Let me go over this optimal thing too, because we get asked this question a lot, and this one is the most confusing version that we've ever had.
Yeah, no, it's pretty difficult.
So if you're looking at this map and you see these numbers in each pie slice, you see 1: something, 2: a mess of slashes and letters and numbers. These are what we're calling optimal values. Optimal values, as opposed to raw values or actual values or total values, which is what we use in the semis map. Total value is, if you just added up all the numbers, this is what you get. The best example is Berrig Lerta 4, right? Berrig Lerta 4 is Berrig, a 3-1, and Lerta 4, a 2-3. Berrig Lerta 4 is 5-4 total value. right? But you will never get 5-4 worth of value out of Errata 4. That's just not how it actually works. You're either spending resources or you're spending influence. So it would be misleading to call Errata 4 a 5-4. So instead, what we do is we have to make kind of a weird wiggle room. And let's lay out what the rule that we use is. The rule is we want to get influence in increments of 3 so that we can buy command counters off of leadership. If we have 4 or 5 influence, that doesn't do us any good. We want to have 3, 6, 9, 12 influence, stuff like that. As best we can, we try to get increments of 3 influence, and then everything else goes into resources. The other thing we're trying to do is, generally speaking, it feels a little dirty to spend... think of it this way. It feels weird to spend 3 trade goods on a command counter, right? You're burning 3 resources to spend the 3 influence on command counters. What people like to do is spend something like Mehar Zul, a 1-3. I'm only losing 1 resource to gain my 3 influence. So generally speaking, we would like to spend more influence than resources on command counters. So every time, all these optimal numbers are based on trying to get the most command counters without burning excess resources. And that's what those numbers all mean. If that's all very confusing to you, I just wouldn't worry about it too much, because honestly, outside of the 2 systems adjacent to your home system, you're not guaranteed anything.
No,
so the numbers don't matter.
Yeah. On this map, the only domain that is a given to be yours are those 2 systems, because the system adjacent to Mechatol Rex on your side has a big ol' anomaly in front of it, and the 2 slices, I'll go ahead and give this away, the 2 slices that have asteroid fields, which you would say, oh, if we have anti-mass deflectors, then shouldn't I have access to that? That's where the alpha and beta wormholes are, on the other side of that asteroid field. So nobody has easy access to the system adjacent to Mechatol Rex.
And the last thing I want to say that is like a general overview before we start really digging into the map is... and we will bring this up again in the specifics, but I want to say the nebula and supernova consideration were really scary for me to do, because I don't like the idea of anyone just like not having a shot at Mechatol Rex. It doesn't seem fair. For 3 players to be 3 away, but 2 players are going to be further than 3 away because of this nebula supernova business. It slows you down a lot. The nebula, a little bit less so, obviously, but the supernova, straight up, you can't get there. So the other consideration we did is, those are the 2 slices where the wormholes are adjacent to your home, and we have positioned the empty wormholes so that you still have, if you wanted to rush for Mechatol Rex, even in the supernova and nebula pie slices, you could rush for Mechatol Rex and be just as far away as anybody else. You go to Quan, to the empty beta, to Mechatol Rex, you're there just as fast as anyone else. So even though you can't do it in the standard path, Mechatol Rex is just as far away from everybody else as anyone else. The weirdest one to consider is going to be this gravity rift slice, but we'll cover that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Do we want to start?
Hunter?
Let's start with the yellow position.
Bottom right.
Bottom right. It is the nebula slice, and we are calling it Evera Forevera. Which is a reference to probably my favorite TI3 hex that is not included in TI4. It was an expansion hex. It is the planet is called Evera, and it is a planet that is inside of a nebula, and it's so much fun. I don't even think it's
really dope.
Necessarily very good.
I think it's great. Because you have defensive advantages in nebulas.
That's true.
So parking a bunch of stuff, depending on where that system ended up. Sometimes I remember Evera ending up in really crazy places that meant you could do... I mean, if like Evera is adjacent to
Mechatol, that would be crazy.
It was awesome. But obviously, we're not talking about that. This isn't actually Evera, but this gives us that feeling. The reason I love Evera Forevera as a name is, so far, I would say in every map we've done, and in most maps I pre-make, I feel like the nebula gets a short shrift. It doesn't feel like an impact. And this is this map, every anomaly has to have an impact. So we're really feeling the nebula on this map. And on this pie slice, I think the nebula is going to be a primary consideration of like, what are you going to do in that nebula?
And I do think that this is maybe one of the only maps I've ever seen where it feels like the idea of parking a pretty solid fleet in the nebula doesn't feel like a huge waste of time.
Especially, I'm glad you're saying that, because I was even thinking, if you park the Xcha flagship in that nebula...
That's insane.
You're protecting a lot of pie slice, and it has a base defense bonus inside that nebula. So if anyone ever wants to come and deal with that flagship, it's double defended from what it normally is.
Well, let's talk about what are the systems adjacent to your home system. Obviously, we have Nebula in the north position. What's on your right and on your left?
So on your right, again, 2 planets to the right, always 1 planet to the left, always. To the right is Case and Raron. That's a 1-2 and a 0-3. A lot of influence. So on the left, because we want to solve this nebula problem with a wormhole, you get Lodor,
right?
3-1 with the alpha wormhole. So ends up being a raw or an optimal value of what we're calling 4-3, because you can't really spend Cason as a command counter unless you're a faction with an easy 1 influence in your slice or whatever. But generally speaking, you're going to spend Cason and Lodor as your resources and Raron as your influence. We're not going to do a crazy in-depth numbers breakdown of every single one, but I wanted to throw that out there so that you can kind of learn how to do this math yourself when you're looking at this image of this map. So that's where those numbers are coming from.
Cool. And so the second, the all of the planets that are 2 away, which I'm going to call they're technically equidistant, but on this map they feel more like choke points. Yeah, honestly, because they are
they're all sandwiched in between these anomalies. You're right.
And without without considering movement, and if everything just has to move 1, then which it will not work out that way, but for some people it will have to be that way. Yeah. We have to the right, we have New Albion Starpoint that's shared with your purple spot. Purple neighbor, and then sharing with your red neighbor, your equidistant is Arnor Lore. Which brings your optimal up to a 5-3 with a green skip. There is one extra consideration, which is that technically, if you did 2 activations or got Warfare, you can get to Lazar Saculag through the nebula, obviously.
In just 2 movements.
And 2 movements, which is kind of a weird exception that we've thrown in here. But Lazar Saculag is technically your 3 away, neighboring with Mechatol Rex. So there you go. There you go.
So yeah, and so that bumps it up to like an 8-3 with a green-yellow skip. What I find interesting about this slice is, and again, all these slices are hard to say like, oh, this has an advantage in X trait, because like you kind of have to pick a direction. Right. You can't expect to have equally strong fleets going in both directions and be able to compete with both neighbors at those choke points. Everyone's gonna have to pick one direction.
Right.
More or less. But this one has an industrial advantage, we should say. Everything surrounding your nebula is what we're going to kind of call your pie slice, even though 2 of those are things you're sharing with other people, really 3 of them. But you have 5 industrial planets within that realm of territory. So that's pretty good. I also want to point out the alpha opens you up. If we're talking about systems that are 3 away, Lazar Saculag is 3 away, Thibba's 3 away, but then going through the alpha, you can jump over across the board to Kornique, Resculon, Dalbutha, and Exxon, which means you also sort of have 5 or 6 cultural planets somewhat at your disposal.
Right.
So this is a great defensive slice that has a lot of ability to get traits of the same type.
Yep. Yeah, I would say that we are probably going to see a lot of people jump through the alpha to surprise take some cultural planets from some of the either green or white player, or maybe even red.
We shouldn't forget to mention that don't let the warp zone trick you. Alpha can jump up to Centauri Grawl too. So realistically, you're looking at 6 industrials and 7 culturals within 3 spaces of your home.
Right, and most of this, I would say the green, red, and yellow players kind of have this all in common, that they will have a ridiculous number of access to lots of different types. Nobody has it as a given. Obviously, that's basically impossible because you only have 3 planets that are within your specific domain. Everything else will have to be fought over, which I think is one of my favorite things about this map, that the control objectives will all be basically accomplishable for every player, but difficult. I'm really excited about that aspect.
If we're calling the 2s choke points, the 3s are more like just like an open bag. Like,
Right.
I don't know, you're going to pull 1 or 2 out. You're not going to get the whole bag. You're going to reach your hand in and see what you can get. The 3s are just this sort of like, I don't know, try to get some of it. So when you're looking at the numbers here, the 1 is like, oh yeah, you're guaranteed pretty much that. The 2 is you'll get half of that. And the 3 is like, I don't know, that's what's available to you.
Right.
Good luck.
It could happen. Let's talk about tech skips a little bit. So one thing that's notable about Errata is it and one other slice, the green player slice, have something in common in that neither of them receive a tech skip on the house.
Yeah.
All of their tech skips will have to be they will be gotten from like contentious.
Earned.
Yeah. But those tech skips that are most likely available are the green on New Albion and the yellow on Lazar, which actually I would say this one of the weaknesses of this slice might be that it has a little less access to tech skips.
Right.
Than
now,
the
that
other.
being said, again, that alpha wormhole opens you up to Grawl.
Right.
You can always get to Thibba. Realistically, what you have, if we're calling up to 3 systems away sort of your world, you've got a green, a yellow, and 2 blue that you technically could get access to.
Right.
Again, we do not expect someone to get access to all of those, but that's kind of your realm.
Right. And I do want to say, which I probably should have said it before, like always, we are open to, if you've got some sort of way to not necessarily fix this map, because I actually love it already. I'm pretty hot
This is my favorite map. This is my favorite map so far.
I'm pretty hot
I like
on
it more
this
than
one.
the prelim map.
But if you find something that is just a no-brainer fix, as always, we are totally open to that. I think my prediction for Errata is it's hard to say, but I do think that the Nebula is actually going to get a lot of use.
I think so, and that's what I hope for it. That's like my dream forever. It sucks that there's only going to be 3 games on it in terms of the tournament. I want to throw this out there. I made new stats pages for all the old maps, and when this one gets released, there will be a stats page released for this as well. If you ever play on this map, please record your game on it. We track things like all of the opening strategy card picks, everyone's position, round 2 strategy card picks and speaker order, and final round strategy card picks and speaker order, as well as who takes the custodian's token and final points. It's a bunch of information, so you kind of have to be taking notes as you go, which I understand is a lot to ask for just like a casual game, but it has been really useful to gain that much information about specific maps because it helps us inform different things about the game. We've learned a lot about how good trade potentially can be. We've learned a lot about how sometimes construction round 2 is really like we get all this new information that is really, really useful. So I have those things posted. They will be a part of the Reddit post. You can always find them on reddit.com/r/wiki/maps. That's where you find basically the Reddit map collection, and I put all of my maps in there with their posts and their stat collection pages. So please collect your stats on this map if you play it outside of the tournament.
Yes, please do. One more prediction I want to make for Errata before we move on is that I think this and the green player have something in common that I think they will more likely be the custodian taker.
Really?
I feel the reason I'm saying this is that I feel like because of the wormhole access, that depending on whether the white and purple are a blue tech faction, if they are, then they might beat you to the custodians. But I think green and yellow are kind of the second place people as far as custodian access, because I don't feel like they're going to get in each other's way to do it. And that if you expand a low door round 1, and then are a blue tech faction, or you get gravity drive, I think we're going to see a lot of people that activate Mechatol Rex first turn round 2 from these positions, green and yellow. So
I think there's some validity in that too, because what we're starting to see, and again, we haven't seen it in the tournament games yet, because you and I currently have not seen the games, but what we're starting to see is in games where equidistant territory is really important, it's pretty rare for someone to be like, I'm going to go to Mechatol Rex.
Right.
The prelims map was like, everybody's heading towards Mechatol Rex. That's what you do. You're going to get on the way to Mechatol Rex. But the person who decides to just go ahead and go, the person in the semis map who takes Warfare is probably best off going for Mechatol Rex because nobody else is going to get close.
Right.
And you can just grab it. And I think you're right that maybe on this map, even though you've got the supernova and nebula problem, everyone else wants to jump on those choke points.
Right.
And you and green can just ignore the choke points, go through your wormhole, and go take Mechatol Rex. And then come back through, right? Like if you go to Lodor, then the empty Alpha, then Mechatol. After Mechatol, you can jump back over to Lazar, Saculite, and be kind of back in your slice again if you want.
I think we will see a lot of that because I don't see the white or purple player wasting a command token just to block your wormhole. So yeah, I think for a lot of the other positions, the players are going to mess each other up as far as their ability to take Mechatol Rex early. I just think green and yellow have the cleanest shot because you basically just have to straight up block them and you get nothing for blocking them. You're not taking any planets there. It's literally the alpha and beta are the only two non-anomaly hexes where you get nothing for being there. Yeah. That's just a kind of random prediction for me. Matt, do you have anything else you want to say about Evera for Evera before we move on to the red player?
Love it for Xcha. Love it for Ghosts.
Yeah,
that's about it. I love those two factions in this slice.
This might be. There's been a lot of really good extra slices. Tech skip wise, this is not the best unless they can get to New. Well, New Albion
okay.
and
green and yellow are
green
in
and
your
yellow.
wheelhouse.
Yeah, right. I think the idea of you getting both of them is kind of hard to imagine. But we are gonna see someone park that flagship in the nebula, and it's gonna be heinous. I mean, this is like 6 hexes surrounding
six good hexes. Six
that's
very
what I'm
good
saying.
planets.
6 contestable, important hexes surrounding. If this slot was Evera and you could put PDS on it too, that would literally be unholy.
Unstoppable.
Unholy. All right, so let's talk about the red slice.
Yes.
So the naming convention for the red slice, it oddly enough, has been about pizza. The last one was called Classic Pepperoni in the red position for the semis map. For this map, we are calling it Meat Lovers. Meat Lovers. It is the goofiest slice, I think, in the whole tournament.
I refuse to accept any errata that's like, oh, if you do the math this way, the math on this Gravity Rift slice is a mess.
Right. So the Meat Lovers is the Gravity Rift slice with the Gravity Rift north of you. Your domain is Melon and Zobat to your right, and then to your left we've got Tarman. So you got that nice green skip there.
It's worth noting that this is on just a raw numbers standpoint. If you're not using the Gravity Rift, this is the worst slice adjacent to home system.
Yeah.
It's a 3/3 that you're really getting the value of. And that's 6 total, that's the worst. But that's because you get the riskiest slice.
Yeah.
You get options if you should choose to take them.
For sure.
Obviously, using the Gravity Rift is a 70% chance of success. That's not so bad.
Yeah.
I guess.
Maybe you should
do it. I
never
get 70. I'm not batting 70% here, but so to break down, if you're looking at the map, what all these disgusting red numbers mean, because it is disgusting and it is a mess.
It's really rough to look at.
If you're looking at the slice breakdown here, right underneath the Gravity Rift, where you see all these gross numbers, 33G, 29BR, the left column is if you choose to play safe and never use the Gravity Rift. Pretend that the Gravity Rift is a supernova. That's what the left column would net you. 1 tile away, 2 tile away, 3 tile away. The right column is if you decide to use the Gravity Rift.
Right.
And we've been very careful to distinctly say to not combine the two. So that is to say, with this number 1 position, right? If we're saying the left side, left column 1 is Tarman, Melon, Zobat, then right side column is Arnor Lore, Thibba, and Aranam Mir, because all of those are 1 tile away if you are using the Gravity Rift to boost yourself. They're technically 2, but you can send a carrier with 1 movement to any of those 3 planets, and that's what gets you 2/9 blue-red skip. That's what those numbers mean. Again, I know it's really confusing. I'm just trying to give you as much information as I possibly can. And there's a guide on all of these tiles everywhere else that show you what we're doing. So with each system tile, it shows you if you're looking at the left number, that's if you're not using how far away it is if you are not using the Gravity Rift. The right side is if you are using the Gravity Rift. et cetera, et cetera. It gets very confusing.
Right.
Which is why we're not going to break down the numbers much beyond that, because it's just, there's too much that you could say.
It's disgusting. There is if you look at the way that Matt has labeled what spaces you can move to, there is a slash on the left side. It is how much movement it would take without the gravity rift. On the right side, it is with the gravity rift, which I think is a level of niceness that is frankly undeserved, but he did it for you anyways. Okay.
Too much information.
I think we're going to see a lot of crazy stuff. And if you're curious, why is it called Meat Lovers? Because it's messy.
It's a meat grinder.
It's messy.
It's just, you're going to throw chunks of meat through that gravity rift. We do not expect players. I don't expect people to play safe, especially on the tournament. I expect the players in this slice. This is the knockout round. These are players who lost their semifinals round, and they need to make plays happen.
Right.
That's the way I view it. Now, I'm that kind of player. So maybe I'm totally wrong, and maybe these players are like, oh my gosh, no, I have to play a perfect, concise, safe game so that I can guarantee victory. But I think the players that might win in Meat Lovers are the ones that take those early game chances.
Right. I think we're going to see a lot of people jump through the rift to take Errata Mir early. I think that's kind of the one to grab of the two equidistants that are available. I don't think we're going to see a lot of early. I don't think people are in a hurry to take Thibba, so I think Thibba's fairly safe.
I'll say this much about it: it is good for if there's a round 1 Mechatol grab, there it is. There's your Winnu.
Right.
I mean, I don't think people in the semifinals are going to be crazy enough to take Winnu, but it's possible.
Yeah.
One of the players that won the prelims was a Winnu player, so maybe that player will decide they want to go for broke here.
I think it's nice that you have the green skip. I wonder how that's going to influence people's picks. But what's a bummer about the green skip is that on your first round, I feel like we're going to see a lot of people that decide to take one of these equidistant systems.
And they won't even go for Tarman.
And they're not going to go for Tarman early. And round 2 is, I think, typically when you need the green skip. If you start with Neural to skip Daxiv.
Right.
To hypermetabolism, because hypermetabolism is a Hunter's Law type tech, where the earlier you get it, the better it is for you. Which we haven't said Hunter's Law in a long time. Planet trait-wise, you're a little bit limited in that I feel like Industrial is your best bet.
And it's not great.
It's not great. Really? No, you've got Tarman.
6
that's a given.
I don't know. It gets so weird because we're trying to count these things 3 tiles away, which on no other map have we ever done. We've never said, let's count them up 3 tiles away. Like, that's so far to count. But because of these anomalies, it forces us to think about things because we know players have to play differently. They cannot play in a safe pie slice. They just have to go. They got to get out and do stuff.
Right. Honestly, I think what it's going to come down to is you're going to have to you're making up your pie slice. You're deciding, all right, which of these equidistants am I going to fight over? Is it the
right side or is it the left side?
Yeah. I am saying that I do think that if the Meat Lovers is going to go for a round 1 gravity rift risk, Errata Mir I feel like is the primary target.
Always. Yeah, for sure.
It is nice that if you go for Arnor Lore, you're going to have 2 Industrial, meaning that with Tarman, you've got 3, and then all you need is Thibba. So you could go for a round 2, claiming that control objective round 2, maybe we might see that.
Maybe pretty possible, yeah.
Tech skip wise, it's not the best.
It's not the best. It's really hard to define because it depends on what kind of chances you decide to take.
Right.
Safely, you've got green, red, and then blue, yellow in those 3 aways. Right. So it's still 4 tech skips. If you decide to go really far out, you can get another green, and then that's about it.
Right.
Over at New Albion start point.
Right. But yeah, overall, I think this is going to be one of the most wild slices we've seen in the tournament in general. Yeah. I think we will definitely at least want to see I'm going for Custodians through the Rift. I think that we will definitely see that. I'm excited.
That's why you would play there. In terms of like picking order, I just don't know if this slice will get picked right away or not. I think people will not be willing to sign themselves up for that risk, but they'll pick a faction first, and then there will be like 2 or 3 slices left, and they'll be like, you know what? this faction could do meat lovers.
Right.
I could have a meat lovers game today. And I think that's where you're going to see this one come into play. Is faction first pick, but then they're like, all right, okay, I'll try it.
Right.
Let's go.
With the thing I always say about meat lovers is it just depends on how hungry you are, Are we ready to talk about the green player's position?
That was an amazing. All right. I'm ready to talk about it.
Yeah.
There is some splaining to
well, first of all, before we tell you the name, this is the supernova position.
This is the supernova position.
With the supernova in between you and Mechatol Rex. And it's called... this is probably the most...
Is this the stupidest name of the tournament?
It's not stupid. It's actually great, but it really has to be explained. It's called Dave's Dutch Oven. And
it could have just been called Dutch Oven.
Right, but it should be called Dave's Dutch Oven. And why? I don't have to explain this. You do.
So it could have been called Dutch Oven just because the supernova, right? And everything, like, you're kind of in this... Not only are you... surrounding the campfire, but more importantly, you have to choose a direction. Everybody else has the option of maybe going through their anomaly. You, unless you're Muat, which in that case, then you are yourself a physical Dutch oven.
Right.
But beyond that, you have to choose a fight with somebody in the Dutch oven position.
Right.
Now, Dave is my dad, David Martins. And David Martins is known for cooking with Dutch ovens.
Yep.
So when I suggested the name Dutch oven,
Hunter
said it should be Dave's Dutch oven,
right?
Because that's what he knows about my dad.
Right.
So that's the whole bit. It's a familial little jape that Hunter threw my way because I wanted to call it Dutch oven.
Right. And so there you go.
Here we are.
There you go.
That's DDO, Dave's Dutch oven.
Dave's Dutch oven. So now you all know a little something about Matt and his family, which is my goal. So let's talk a little bit about your neighboring systems. We've got on your right, we've got Techeron Torkin. And on your left, we've got Quan with the good side of the beehole.
I think this is a really efficient slice. It's not the most efficient, but Techeron a 2-0, Quan a 2-1, and then Torcan a 0-3. Like you don't feel like you're really wasting anything in these opening slices. Now you don't have any tech skips though. This shares that in common with the Nebula slice with Evera Forever.
Yeah.
Where you don't have tech skips adjacent to you.
Right.
But the reason I kind of want to justify that is it with those wormholes, because again, this is Dave's Dutch Oven has the beta wormhole. Those wormholes open up your access to more. So while you don't have as much immediately adjacent to you, green and yellow, Evera Forever and Dave's Dutch Oven have the most options on the far end.
Right.
So factions that are able to jump out there faster, Ghosts obviously are great in either of these slices, specifically because of Quan and Lodor. But anything that starts with Animass and can get to Gravity Drive fast is going to do great in these slices because you can utilize those wormholes to get to places further away that aren't necessarily in your slice, but you can gain more in the long run than you have in the short term.
Yeah, I expect this map to have a very multicolored, like, everybody's just kind of mixed up everywhere kind of deal, because I think there's going to be a lot of people actually going for control objectives in scary places, mostly because of Evera Forever and Dave's Dutch Oven. I will say, my current gut feeling is that, well, number-wise, Dave's Dutch Oven is not the worst slice. I think this difficulty of having to pick, all right, well, what equidistant am I going for?
Right.
And then my third option is to go mix it up across the map.
Beta,
it's either going to cause a lot of Dave's Dutch Oven people to go Mechatol or broke, or pick the wrong equidistant and have to fight the wrong person.
Yeah, because like we said, RNM Mirror is a good direction to go, but Meat Lovers is probably going for RNM Mirror.
Right.
And there's a good chance they're going to beat you there.
And
so are you going to take that race? Are you going to go for that?
Right.
I don't know.
I mean, I think in most cases, if Meat Lovers is going to play that to go through the rift. I mean, obviously it's a 70% chance. So if they take that gamble,
if they fail, you got prime pickings.
Well, yeah, honestly, that's kind of what's scary about it is you kind of need to see what's going to happen with that.
Well, see, that's the thing about Dave's Dutch Oven is you wait for meat lovers to make their mistakes. You just bake a little. You just sit there and you cook. You
simmer.
Wait it out.
You simmer.
With a Dutch oven, it's about the slow cook.
Right.
You're not doing anything fast in a Dutch oven.
Right.
You're sitting it and you're letting it wait. And you see what you get on the other side.
Let's talk. So the equidistants are of course Errata Mir, and then Kornik Resculon on the other side. That you're gonna be. There's gonna be a lot of competition. I feel like with Dave's Dutch Oven because I feel like the white player is gonna have a pretty good reason to come after Kornik Resculon, and then Meat Lovers I feel like is gonna have a very good reason to go to Errata Mir. I will make my case later why I think white is probably going for Kornik Resculon.
Okay. Because I don't think that way, but I'm interested to hear your point. We'll get to that.
I do. But I just think in Dave's Dutch Oven, you're going to have a lot of competition, and this Quan B hole access is, I think, going to be very important.
Yeah,
but
it's funny that the slice with the supernova on the path to Mechatol Rex is maybe the best option to take Mechatol Rex.
Yeah, I just think it's because of that B-hole access. And like I said, I think players are going to be getting each other's way. Yeah. No, Well, I didn't swear. Okay, that's not a swear. That's not a swear. I just, that's all. Just shut up, Matt. So anyways, and obviously Dave's Dutch Oven is going to be very defensive. So, but not in like a extra way.
No,
just
it
like,
doesn't have that Evra Forever defenses. It's like I don't know. I don't even know if I categorize it as defensive. It's very weird.
Yeah, PDS networks in general are going to be kind of difficult to set up here because they're going to be kind of bunk unless you get them on the equidistance that, of course, are going to be the most difficult spaces to take.
Right.
And even on the equidistance, they're not going to have the crazy access that they normally do.
Yeah. I will say Evra Forever sort of has a trait and tech skip problem.
Yeah.
I think. You've got your red in your choke points. You've got green, white, or green, yellow, and blue in your 3-aways. But of course, we can't really count on that much. And more importantly,
you said Evra Forever. You mean Dave's Dutch Oven, right?
I was comparing it to Evra Forever.
Oh, I see.
But the point being, Dave's Dutch Oven has cultural planets are pretty all right if you choose that path, if you go around the Kornik Resculon way. But everything else is actually fairly tricky because even if you go through Quan, you're opening up access to Lazar, New Albion, and Grawl for some industrials. But I'm not sure where your fourth industrial is coming from. It's just I think Dave's has less options than Evra Forever does in that respect, and kind of the same thing with the tech skips. You run into a couple issues. So those objectives I do think are a little bit harder. So I don't know. Maybe this is the worst slice. Maybe.
I think that it is just barely. I think that's inherent in the fact that there's a supernova. Supernova is the worst.
Gonna do. Yeah.
It's the worst anomaly to be in the way. But I do think that if you can leverage that advantage of nobody's getting through there, it could be you could have a decent game with it. I do think that it is the worst because it has this impediment. And is not the most perfectly defensive slice either, because there are two slices. The two slices we have to talk about, I think, have more. Oh, you just kind of get this for free, but that is kind of inherent in the 5-player setup. They're always going to have that. Are we ready to talk about the white player?
Real quick, I like that I did this with Evra Forever. I forgot to do it with Meat Lovers. I want to throw out a couple factions for these two pie slices that we like. Obviously, Dave's Dutch Oven, Muwa is fun and interesting. I don't know if it's great.
You don't have the tech. You don't have the tech skips.
You don't have the tech. You don't have the tech skips. You also start with one movement warstone, so you're not going through that supernova right away. You're not getting gravity drive anytime soon. So I wouldn't say it's great for Muwa, but does it feel good for anybody else? Is anybody else playing this way? I think it is a good Ghosts pick.
I think it's a great Ghost pick. I think it's any blue tech faction, I think, is going to have a lot of fun here.
Soul is great here.
Oh,
because Soul can pick a direction and solidify it. So Soul can just say, no, I'm going to take the RNA mirror direction, and Maybe even I don't beat the Gravity Rift faction to get there. I don't beat Meat Lovers, but I'll bring more later, and I'll beat them then.
I think it's a good Nalu faction too, just based on the fact that maybe you'll be able to lock down one of the equidistance before somebody else because you're always going first. That's kind of a big toss-up there. I think Dave's Dutch Oven, I mean, like you said before, you're going to have to simmer. You're going to have to look at what the other players are doing and kind of adjust to that. If Meat Lovers is going to take the gamble with Aaron and Amir, then we have to see how that turns out. Like, don't leave yourself open to that. I think this is the slice where you have to play the smartest. Yes. But if you can leverage that supernova to your advantage instead of it being impediment, then I think you could have a lot of success.
Yeah. Can you throw out any factions for Meat Lovers before we move on?
Oh, right. Yeah, Meat Lovers
skip that.
Is so...
that green skip nearby. Mentak is interesting.
Yeah, I think Mentak is probably the most interesting.
Cruisers extra far, 4 systems away if you get Cruiser 2 right away. That's pretty big. I mean, you can just send those cruisers anywhere.
Also, we've seen a lot of Mentak players that just park a cruiser in the Gravity Rift to pillage from people, and that's a very solid, okay, that's a solid pillage forever.
You can even park something in Evera Forever as Nebula round 1.
Oh, for sure.
You can just put stuff wherever. So any faction that's kind of like that, that's just like, I need to get my stuff out there, I think is going to do okay.
I think Meat Lovers is really hard to predict because it all has to do on how you utilize the Gravity Rift. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a real gambler's slice more than anything, in that I think depending on how that Gravity Rift chews you up, we could see all kinds of viability for different factions. I mean, it could even make something like Arborek a little more viable if they take the gamble and it works. Imagine an Arborek that was able to take an equidistant before their neighbor and get set up, right?
Yeah.
Like that.
It's a big deal.
That sounds like a lot to me. And with
the green skip helps.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Green skip helps with Arborek. There's probably a lot of random ways of thinking with Meat Lovers just because I don't know what's going to happen. Winu, I think, could be interesting, obviously, if they make it through. I don't know. Yeah, it's a little too much to even think about. I mean, obviously, anybody like let's say Ghost started at Meat Lovers. I'm not really sure why they would, but using the Gravity Rift to fling the Ghost ships to basically any space is
oofa doofa,
literally ridiculous. And there's also Thibba here for a blue skip if they wanted to go for an early light wave or something like that. Early light wave Ghosts from Meat Lovers would be completely insane.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into these northern positions.
Okay, so the white position, and this might be a little bit confusing at first because I think these are in some ways the strongest names and in some ways the weakest names we've ever had for a faction. White is called Leonard Nimoy, after the actor Leonard Nimoy, who played Spock on Star Trek: The Original Series. It currently makes no sense why.
For you Brits out there, we're almost getting into a little bit of Cockney slang with these final things.
Sure,
there's a path we have to follow. So Leonard Nimoy is somewhat defined by, first off, the hyperlane, the warp zone section up here by them.
Right.
There's also this asteroid field and empty wormhole problem. It's just sort of this your brain has to reconfigure in this slice for space, for the outer reaches of space. And more importantly, like we said, with Evera Forever, Meat Lovers, and Dave's Dutch Oven, those 3 are going to be duking it out more or less with each other.
Yeah.
These northern positions feel out of place, and they feel on the far reaches of space. They're out exploring other things, which is why we end up kind of with this. It feels a little Star Trek-y, right?
The Star Trek thing. Obviously, the thing about both the white and purple position with the asteroid fields and their in the way for them, blue factions are going to play completely differently than anybody else. If you start with anti-mass deflectors, that is going to kind of guide you a little bit. It's not crazy broken because on the other side is the alpha and beta. But I think if white... If there's a difference, let's say there's white is somebody that starts with anti-mass and purple is someone that doesn't, I think Centauri Grawl is going to kind of go to that person.
Right.
Obviously, visually, it seems like purple and white are going to duel over Centauri Grawl more than anybody else. Centauri Grawl is the hex that we've placed in the middle of the hyperlanes.
Right. Which really just becomes purple and white's equidistant. It's the same as Cornic Resculon or Aaron M. Mir or Arnor Lore or New Albion Starpoint. It is in the same type of position.
Right. Let's talk about, we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. So the neighboring planets, we've got Meharzul on the left side, and then we've got Abyss Freya on the right. And earlier I said that I think that white is going to possibly duel with Dave's Dutch Oven for Cornic Resculon. I want to go and explain that because the purple, obviously, now, if you've been paying attention, has Bereg Lerda 4 on their kind of good side versus white. So I think we're going to see white be a little more interested in Cornic Resculon than Centauri Grawl.
Yeah.
Because I think...
Well, in general, it seems like everyone, despite the speaker priority issue, everyone still has an incentive to go right first.
Yes.
Because that's the juicier value.
Right. So, yeah, that's just kind of the feeling I got in my bones. I think after that, like what kind of is kind of a bummer about white and purple is that their 3 movement away access is pretty limiting. Basically, Leonard Nimoy can only get to Dalbutha Zihon, which is not the sexiest hex.
Yeah. Right. But to make up for that, you start with really juicy stuff right by you.
Yes.
You're a 5-3 with a red skip. This is a good starting position.
Yeah.
This is better than everybody else's, I would argue, starting position. You've got good money. You've got a free command counter there. You got a red skip if you want it. Centauri Grawl is a great system. Cornic Resculon isn't that bad. Like, you can make stuff work here. You just don't have as many distant options as everybody else. But like we've kind of kept reiterating, nobody's guaranteed those distant options anyways.
For sure.
I think that ends up being okay, and that, you know, that you can always go through that alpha and try to combat Evra for Evra at Lodor and mess around over there. But I think more than anything, you're going to see Leonard Nimoy stay in his corner.
Right.
This is your more turtley faction, and they're going to get away with, you know, everything they can in their area.
Right.
That being said, traits are a little tricky for them, right? I mean, there's 3 hazardous planets right there.
But the 4th is difficult.
The 4th is not just, I mean, you got to take Bereg Lerda 4 from your neighbor. That's basically your only option.
Right.
Is to continue left into your neighbor's pie slice. There's not any other great option for you.
What is interesting in the white versus purple kind of setup, and they're very, very similar slices to each other. They're basically mirrored. However, you do have a little bit of a trade advantage on purple. Purple only has access to, purple has easy access to 2 hazardous, and they're 2 away from a 3rd hazardous, meaning that they're going to have to duel for their 3rd hazardous, meaning they're probably not going to go that route if they're trying to get their 4th hazardous from you, whereas it's very likely that you're going to have your 3 hazardous and possibly try and steal one from purple, but it'll be a tough
The other
fight.
option, too, is another reason to go Cornic Resculon route is Cornic Resculon and Dalbutha Exhon are right next to each other.
Yeah.
You can get your 4 cultural there if you want. So if you just chose and committed to that direction, you could find your 4 traits there.
I do think that Cornic Resculon and Dalbutha Zihon are going to be kind of bloodbath areas of people not necessarily invading both systems for all 4, that's kind of heinous, but for choosing one of those systems to be like, all right, I'm getting those 2 culturals right now from somebody else. Faction-wise, I think Leonard Nimoy basically has Barony of Letnev written all over it.
Oh, boy, howdy does it.
Right.
This is such a good Barony of Letnev
This
slice.
might be the best Barony of Letnev slice we've had in the tournament. You got the red skip nearby so that you can skip everyone's favorite Mage and Defense Grid. You can just skip that. You start with anti-mass, so you are not limited by the fact that you have Asteroid Field in front of you. You've also got, I mean, if you win the fight for Centauri Grawl, that's a blue skip you've got, possibly getting you to, you know, Fleet Logistics or early Dreadnought 2 or light
get
wave.
grab drive and get your light wave or whatever.
Right,
yeah.
right,
The
right.
blue red is not bad, but more importantly, that red is huge.
The red
Astrid
is great.
Field is not a concern for them. It's a lot of money too. Abyss Freya, and I mean, like you will have a command counter problem a little bit. That's another reason why Centauri Grawl is not bad. You get your other 1/3. If you go
Right,
Mehar-Zul
right.
into Centauri Grawl, all right, you can get 2 command counters around. That's not so bad. But you'll be swimming in cash.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you
Yeah.
will be so crazy rich. So, yeah, Barony Letnev could come swinging really. Again, you can sit back, you can build up your armada, you can come out in round 3 or 4 and decimate anything, anybody. Everybody else is stretching thin for their 3OAs, right? You can come out with just this huge, terrifying, giant fleet late game.
What I want to say is that I think this is a great Barony slice, and in kind of theory crafting that, I do think if you're Barony, Centauri Grawl is the one to go after, not Cornic Resculon. And actually, you know what? Now that you've brought up command counters in general, I think in a lot of ways you're gonna want. You just really need Centauri, honestly.
Yeah. That's the main thing I think about these top positions is command counters are a little bit of an issue because both of them are a little bit designed to be more turtley. So like the idea is maybe you aren't using so many command counters because you're kind of just sitting in your good slice, not fighting over as much stuff. So you don't have as big of a command counter need, but obviously the risk to that is like the typical extra problem of like, well, if you're not out scoring points, then what are you doing?
Right.
So these slices I am worried about. But again, we're in the knockout round at this point. I expect our players to find solutions to that problem of just sitting and not doing, you could sit in your slice and not win the game, or you need to find a way to get out. And that could be tricky, but I don't think it is insurmountable for this slice.
Yeah, I mean, I think with all the resources, I think any faction that just builds crazy big fleets, even L1 would be fine here. If you're just kind of stacking up and moving your big fleet around, you should be fine. I do, now that we have talked this all out, I do feel like I want to take back the thing I said about Dave's Dutch Oven. I think maybe Cornic Resculon is maybe more the one you're going to go for versus Aranam Mir. I think you're a little more guaranteed that. And also, if you get Cornic Resculon, you're going to have your 4 culturals done, which is great.
Which is really nice. Yeah.
Anyways, we want to talk about the last slice.
We want to talk about the last one. So it's very similar to Leonard Nimoy. It is basically a mirror image of Leonard Nimoy in many ways.
We decided to be super Trekkie about it and named the purple slice Brent Spiner.
Who is? I don't.
Brent
I'm not that
Spiner
person.
is the actor on Star Trek: The Next Generation that portrayed the character Data. Data was, if you don't remember, the robot character from The Next Generation, and kind of fulfilled a very similar role to Dr. Spock on the original series.
Please don't give us errata about how Spock and Data actually aren't that similar, and actually
they're hugely similar.
Sure,
they're
but I'm just sure I'm sure we're gonna get someone who's like, actually, let's discuss the inner psychology of whatever. This is not a Star Trek show, and I'm not even barely. I don't think I've ever seen a single episode of Star Trek. Let's move on. I don't need.
I've got some errata now for you. You've never watched Star Trek?
Let's talk about Brent Spiner.
Oh my God. Well, Brent Spiner, 70-year-old brilliant actor. Brent Spiner, probably my favorite Star Trek actor and character. I'll fight you. Leonard Nimoy,
same issue.
Rest
same
in peace.
issue here.
But
Asteroid Field North.
Sure.
Empty beta further north. On your route to Mechatol Rex is not fun. It's not pretty.
No.
But adjacent to you, best system in the game, Barrack Lurda 4. Arguably best system in the game.
Sure.
To your left, you got Wellen, Yellow Skip. This one we're calling a 4-3. 4 resources for Barrig and then Wellen. 3 influence from Lurda 4. Barrack Lurda 4 is always an awkward one to like try to equate. I could also call this a 3-5. Right? 3 for Barrig, spend 2-3 Lurda 4 as 1 command counter, use the 1-2, and if you can scrounge up $1 more, one more influence, you can get a 6. But obviously the reason we're using this math to say no, if we can't make 3, 6, or 9, we don't continue going up. So we lock ourselves off at 3. To put the cart before the horse, this is my favorite Hakan slice ever.
Yeah, it's a great Hakan
radical.
slice.
Hakan's got a 0-1, so this can have a 3/6 for you, sitting pretty. You got a yellow skip to your left. I have recently converted to desperately in love with yellow skip Hakan. Transit diodes is almost required.
Yeah,
Hakan,
right.
To solve their 3-planet home system problem. I'm not going to get into too many details, but I think this is a dope pie slice for the Emirates of Hakan.
I agree.
We haven't seen that much Hakan because players don't like to put them into the draft purely because of how much time they take, not necessarily because of the quality of the faction. Everyone's just like, I don't want to play a Hakan game. I wonder if the semis go fast, they're faster games because we're all better and more on top of it, and all the players are faster. I think we could see that timeline issue become less of a problem, and I think we will start to see more Hakan because of it.
Yeah, that's an interesting theory. I also think we might see the semis games take longer because people are agonizing more over choices. Absolutely. So who knows? Actually, technically, we know currently, as of now,
we know how one
in
game
the current past, or in the current present, whatever. I'm sorry, this has been a messy one. If it's a Hakan slice, though, I feel like you can kind of give up on Centauri Grawl, which I think is interesting.
Get the new Albion Star Point. Green skip is also great. If I can jump to production biomes, that's amazing.
Right.
I love going south. I love going to Welland, then the new Albion Star Point. Send one carrier to Barragloda 4 to camp out on that. Let Leonard Nimoy take Centauri Grawl. I'll get it later if I want it. I don't need it, though. The asteroid field is not a problem. I start with anti-mass. I think everything's going to sit pretty here in Brent Spiner.
Yeah, I also think obviously a SAR in either Brent Spiner and Leonard Nimoy is super cool. You kind of can even with chaos mapping turn your asteroid field into a similar situation that Errata has with the Nebula. Yeah. And that you can just kind of you can use the asteroid field as a staging area and strike it who knows where on your turn. Yeah, who knows where you're going.
Yep. The traits aren't as big of an issue, I would say, for Brent Spiner. You can go to Barragloda 4, and then just to your south, you've got Starpoint and Saculag for some hazardous, or you can do Welland, Kaysen, New Albion, and Lazar for your industrial. Again, that's still a decent amount of planets to take, but if you're committing to south, it's possible, right? So you've got two options that are okay for your traits. You've even got Grawl for a 5th industrial up above. I don't think Brent Spiner is in quite as dire straits as Leonard Nimoy is for that kind of thing. Right. So in that way, I do think maybe Brent Spiner is the better slice of the two.
Right. I think so, but I think it's just barely, and also because of Mehar Zul, it's kind of a toss up as far as like faction matchups, basically.
Yeah.
Who else would be good in Brent Spiner? I actually feel like it's not a horrible Yin slice.
No, it's great for Yin. Yeah, absolutely. The asteroid field is annoying because I don't know if you're ever getting anti-mass deflectors as Yin. Yeah. Because you really would just like to get Grawl and get the blue skip, but more importantly, yellow-green skip is super great for Space Dock 2. And I mean, Yin is either a green-yellow or a green-blue race, depending on how you want to slice it. Yeah. So yeah, I think it is great for Yin, and especially considering if you do decide to whichever direction you pick, you're gonna defend it. You're Yin, right? Especially if you get that Welland, if you get your transit diodes round 2, whichever direction you picked is more or less yours.
Yeah. I think we might see some Yin play in Brent Spiner with like them kind of forfeiting Centauri Grawl and maybe going for Starpoint New Albion and taking that from Errata. I am really curious as to the relationship between Brent Spiner and Errata because Errata I think Errata meat lovers are probably the two most wild slices and probably the best. But there's a lot of unknowns
because of the options.
Yes,
right. So Brent Spiner could throw all kinds of kinks into they could really throw off Errata's plans,
right?
Which would but Errata has the advantage of I can redirect, I can go somewhere else. It's not actually a huge deal because I have lots and lots of options.
Right.
That's what makes those slices good. The sheer dollar amount isn't necessarily that much better in Errata and meat lovers,
right?
But I can't decide if that's going to be what decides these games, right? Is it going to be the amount of options you have, or is just the slice that has the clearest perfect path, is that the best one, right? Is Brent Spiner great because Welland to New Albion Starpoint to Lazar Saculag to Mechatol Rex is a pretty dope path. Is that going to be the defining feature of this map, of like whoever found the best route of all A tier perfect systems, that's the best one. I don't know.
All right, I've got some predictions then. I've got things I want to say. I think Evera Forevera and Meat Lovers have the greatest potential as far as slices go, meaning that I think you slap down basically any old faction, they've got a good shot, and they can utilize those possible advantages. Dave's Dutch Oven, no idea what's going to happen with that one. It's going to be a weird one. I think all of these slices are viable. But that Dave's Dutch Oven is just kind of an awkward slice. I think Leonard Nimoy and Brent Spiner, with the right factions, will dominate. Will have really, really solid games. But the draft has to go the right way for you. And this is another the thing that this map has in common with the semis map is I feel like people are going to have a little bit of prejudice against blue factions
Maybe
that start
so.
with anti-mass. Not as much as in the semis. Semis, people are really talking up how much starting with a blue tech is such a huge advantage on that map. But I mean, if you're starting in Leonard Nimoy and Brent Spiner, it's you got to think that maybe, being able to like go from your home system 2 away to Corny Gresculon through the asteroid field is you're always going to have that as an option, whereas everybody else has to go to the 1 spot and then to the 2, if that makes sense.
Right, it does.
Dave's Dutch Oven has to go to Quan and then decide if they want to go to Corny Gresculon.
Right.
Whereas Leonard Nimoy is always going to be able to hop through the asteroid field and possibly surprise take Corny Gresculon.
Yeah.
If they have anti-mass.
I think from the tournament perspective, I'm excited for the draft on this map, maybe more than anywhere else, because I think the draft is going to play out fairly similarly in every game.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to see Meat Lovers and Evera Forever get grabbed first. Maybe not even... Meat Lovers is questionable. It's hard to say exactly what's going to happen there. But I think Evera Forever is going to be a first pick slice almost every time. I think it is really good. Which means it's generally going to have the lower factions.
Right.
Versus the people who grab a faction right away. Oh, Soul got in this game. I'm grabbing that. They're going to end up in Leonard Nimoy or Brent Spiner.
Right.
Which I think kind of works out. I think this map will have the best self-balancing because I don't think any of these slices are so far out of whack with each other. I don't think they're so far out of balance, but there is a little bit of a power dynamic, and I think that matches the amount of power dynamic between the factions.
Right.
So I think the best factions will end up in Leonard Nimoy and Brent Spiner, and the worst factions will end up in Ever Forever, a little bit of Meat Lovers. Dave's Dutch Oven will be that sort of middle ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
And I think that's going to lead to some really just great games because I think it's going to come out really balanced. I currently don't see these games being especially swingy. I think it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight all the way down to the 10th point.
Yeah, I agree. And also, one thing that I just realized is the learn the secrets of the cosmos.
Yeah.
That secret objective is very accomplishable on this.
Yeah. Everyone can do it easily without even thinking about it.
Right. So don't get too cocky getting that point. I will say that is an automatic point on this. Just something and honestly, that one's kind of always an easy point.
If you're doing, especially when I'm doing these symmetrical builds, that has generally been the case. And it's even better on a 5-player map because now there's not one person getting left out of that.
Yep. Everybody gets a shot at it. I'm just really excited to see people play on this map. And I don't know. Everybody let us know, as always, what you think. Complain if that's what you do. If you're a complainer, go ahead and throw those complaints out there. Let's hear it. Sure. If you got a fix for something that you found that we didn't see.
Honestly, and this isn't me having an ego about it, I can't imagine what a fix here would be.
I can't imagine either, but
everything I've ever looked at with this is just a reshuffle.
Right.
It's just deciding to change something up. I can't see anything that is an obvious flaw that would deserve a fix. But people always point out stuff about these maps that is something I never even just thought of. I just I just didn't even consider that was something people would think about. So I don't know. We will definitely see what gets said, and I'm excited. I love doing these map discussions. If anything, once the tournament is over, like I might occasionally just make a map so that we can talk about it on the show, because I think it's fun, and I like our platform of having this show as a good opportunity to get tests like this,
right?
Try out maps, get multiple games on one map just to see how that kind of shakes out. I have a lot of interest in that, and that's a project I will probably continue in the future.
All right, well, I just want to say I like this show.
Well, you know what? Hunter, I think you're a good friend, and I like you.
Hey, you know what? I think I like you. And I think I like... That wasn't to you, Matt. That was to the listener.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I like Errata, and I haven't seen him in a while.
Let's do it. All right, so here we go. We got some welcome to the Errata Zone. I am your host, Hunter Donaldson, and this is my co-host, Matt Martins.
Hello.
Yeah, say hello to the people. Last week, we did the best episode of all time, which you'd think wouldn't have any errata, but that's not really how the show works, my friends. We were talking about basically a glossary of terms having to do with just meta table play stuff in general, and it was so much fun.
Non-tactical, non-strategic,
yes,
purely above the table.
But we did say a lot of buzzwords that do get people in a tiffy. Words like kneecapping, words like king making.
You know, these types of episodes, I think people don't even listen to when they want to comment on it because of, like you're saying, the buzzword thing. Not to say nobody's listening to it. Ugh. No, I'm just saying people come to the table with stuff to say about kneecapping, and they don't even need to listen to the episode because they know what they gotta say when it comes to kneecapping or king making or whatever, all these terms. So yeah, the buzzwords, someone sees us mention that and they're already on Reddit typing out their paragraph about kneecapping,
right?
Which is great. They're the biggest threads and they're super fun. Like it, we hash out a lot of stuff. At this point, it's getting a little cyclical. I mean, we've kind of hit a lot of the same points with some things. So today's errata, I think we're trying to hit some stuff we haven't really touched on before.
So if you submitted some errata on like king making, we're trying to give that one a little bit of a break. We tried to give it a break even in the episode, and I think we probably even talked about it for too long.
Yeah.
But the first one is from Phil Roy. It is about kneecapping. Phil Roy says, personally, I look at kneecapping as taking decisive action against less powerful players instead of taking other, more advantageous actions. I like the specificity of this definition a lot.
Yes.
And I think it is something maybe we were orbiting, but we did not quite capture this essence.
I think more than anything, you were. I don't think I ever boiled down what I felt about kneecapping, but you were kind of orbiting this idea, which is that to kneecap is very distinct from attacking the person in the lead. Attacking the person in the lead is just what happens in Twilight Imperium.
Right.
Kneecapping is this. I'm hurting a less powerful player, generally in a way that gains me nothing.
Right.
Or very little, because again, if I'm trying to accomplish an objective and it happens to be through you and that hurts you, that's also not necessarily kneecapping from a meta standpoint. All of those two scenarios are tactical scenarios. I need to stop the leader or I need to gain whatever points, and yours are the easiest. Kneecapping is you are weak, I will make you weaker and crush your ability to do anything this game.
It's like a player is playing Space Risk for a minute. And that's not to denigrate kneecapping. No. I think it is a smart play sometimes. I think those situations are kind of rare. Yeah. I do think people talk about a lot of situations where they should have been tougher on an opponent and they weren't. I feel like sometimes that's a grass is always greener kind of situation where you're just thinking like, oh, like if I had really, because most of the time when people try and eliminate somebody else or really try and double down on someone, it costs them too much because then you're kind of praying for the objectives to reward you and they might not already be set up to do that. Now, if they already are, then whatever, have at it. But I do like that there's this kind of like almost bullyish or bullish aspect to Phil Roy's definition, where it's like you are kind of
you're doing a mean thing.
Yeah, you're prioritizing. When
we use kneecapping as a proper turn, it's not a good thing.
Yes.
It's not something that the rest of the table is like, oh, this is okay. We're all okay with this.
Yeah.
It should fall in line with a lot of the other meta descriptions where it's like, ooh, you feel a little seedy, you feel a little dirty after doing that.
Right.
That's how kneecapping should feel. Is like, I'm gonna take Arborex's home system just after I took the system with all of their ground forces, and they're gonna be left essentially with nothing.
Yeah.
Just because I can do it, just because I can right now. That's the only reason I'm doing it. That's kneecapping.
Yeah, I agree. Or just like anytime someone, I think the most common kneecapping situation is when you make like a round 2 attack on somebody that is like, oh, you kind of messed up here. And like maybe you left your home system defended and now I can activate it and bring a cruiser 2 with a ground force and invade one of your home systems. And I'm also Arborec or something. And then I can like, you know what I mean? Like just something
it's just
along
that weak
line.
attack that it just devastates them.
Right. And it forces
in
them to basically waste a round or, I really like what Phil Roy wrote. We got an interesting errata from JattaPake.
Well, yeah. So this was a lot of people we brought up at the beginning of the show, and this was probably me being a naughty man, kind of revealing JattaPake's faction before he was like fully releasing it. We kind of teased it, and so we got a lot of questions of, hey, where can I find JattaPake's faction? I want to see it. I want to play it. I want to know what it's all about. Mm-hmm. And he's sort of released a couple like little pictures of it, and he's posted the abilities and everything on our Discord and whatnot. But he wanted to make sure people were knowing he was posting this around that he's going to officially release it on April 1st.
Right.
Which I guess it's April Fool's Day, and we're talking about JattaPake here, so I don't know how far you can trust that.
Who knows what that means?
Who knows what that means? But I assume he is meaning that. So if you really want to get that faction, keep an eye out for it until beginning of April, and he'll be posting it, I assume, on the subreddit, and we'll repost it on the Discord and Twitter and everywhere, because it is a cool...
It's pretty cool.
He mailed us each copies of it. Or at least
I was about to say, if you're really cool, then you already have it. You know,
because the coolest people already have it.
Me and Matt are really cool, so we already have it. Right?
Actually, we have like the beta version, so I gotta get an update. I have to get the updated version.
The art is so great. Laxo, Alex, who has been on the show several times, writes in to talk about fluxing. Fluxing? Yeah. No, not flexing. Fluxing.
Fluxing. What was fluxing again? Fluxing was our meta term for basically someone who doesn't necessarily always explain the rules when it's not advantageous for them. I don't tell you exactly how this action card works because I don't want you to use it on me right now because it would hurt me. So I just don't really bring up that part of it. That's sort of the idea of fluxing.
Right.
Or hiding aspects of rules from people.
I thought fluxing was where you pretend to mess up the rules or not know the rules.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a little bit of a combination of all of that. Yeah.
Right.
So it's to not know that someone could have fired their PDS or something. Anyways, yeah, what does Alex say?
So Alex says, honestly, I'm going to go on the record and say fluxing is very similar to angle shooting to my mind. In that sense, I consider it dishonest and unsportsmanlike. I'm not talking here about suggesting how another player plays, but reminding other players about steps of the game, like PDS fire. Basically, if Twilight Imperium were a computer game and all the steps were automated so that it prompted you and asked, would you like to fire your PDS, or similar optional steps like riders, everyone at the table ought to collectively accept that responsibility to create the level playing field as dictated by the rules. I do this when I play, and I realize I probably put myself at a disadvantage to other players who don't have the sense of collective spirit, but it's a bleeping board game that I play with my friends. To me, there's an extremely thin line between not reminding someone about PDS when you think they may have forgotten and going ahead and rolling your combat dice to mess them up, to mess them out of that step. I guess I just feel like every win ought to be honest and predicated completely on actual intelligence, good strategy, bluffing, etc., within the confines of the game, both as how it's designed and intended. I really liked that piece because it's very in line with like my attitude as a Twilight Imperium gamer. I think it's important for people to continue to be respectful. I do feel like I have a weird caveat to this, which is that for the purpose of the tournament and me and Matt moderating and keeping that all running smoothly, PDS, I think, is one of the things that we have decided to not remind people to do, not because we disagree with what Alex is saying here, but because it creates a slippery slope situation where we then have to remind people to do everything that is like a may. And we've decided that may as a keyword basically designates that it's something we're not going to remind you to do. We will, however, state it's the end of the movement step. And if you know what happens then, that's your cue for PDS fire, basically.
So basically, I completely agree with all of this, even if I sometimes accidentally don't enact it as much as I can. I think I have a weakness where I get too hung up in my own strategy, where I just quiet up and I let people make their mistakes because I'm just trying to make my thing happen. But regardless, I agree that the players themselves should be reminding each other of every step. And that's to go off of Hunter's point. That's what I think the players in our tournament should be doing as well. The stance that we're starting to solidify is that Hunter and I's job is to make sure you don't actively break any rules.
Yes.
It is not to make sure you are reminded of every single step in the game. We started out that way, and it's not good, and it takes too long, and it's unnecessary because people are smart enough to play the game themselves. So what we're really trying to do is just not let anyone break rules, and if the players want to remind each other of their PDS and everything, that's on them, but that is not on us as moderators. So to that end, Alex's point of how a player, it's on the players, it's on this collective spirit, that should still exist within the tournament. Those 6 players in that game should have that collective spirit to keep everything moving along. But the moderators are this separate outside entity that is only there to keep the game from any obvious cheating, to make sure builds are done properly, to make sure people have the counters when they're supposed to have the counters and don't have them when they're not supposed to have them, that kind of stuff. We're just there to make sure people don't break the rules, not remind you of every single rule.
Yeah, because if we were willing to remind you of every single rule, then I think
there's no limit to
that. Right. And essentially we could get in trouble for all kinds of things. So yeah, I do think right now we are very much into just if it's a may, we are going to leave it to you.
Yeah.
However, we do always make sure that people understand what phase of the game that we are in.
Yeah. So there's one more here. This is not a direct errata. This was not posted in our Reddit thread, and this was not posted on the Discord. But there was a thread by Marine Alver, a very active poster on the Reddit, the subreddit, and he made a post called "The Mathematics of Smurfing: Why the Winner of the Twilight Imperium Tournament Will Not Be the Best Twilight Imperium Player."
What?
This is a personal attack, and I take no. It's a very long post, and it's a mathematical thing. It's if you know what the Monty Hall problem is, it's a very similar thing to that. It's like this statistical anomaly that works sort of the opposite way as you would expect it to work. I'm not going to go over everything, but the gist is if you have a 1v1, the better player statistically will win. If you have a 1v1v1, the way the actual numbers break down is the worst player actually usually wins because they mess up the flow of the game. And so there's an argument that this function takes place in Twilight Imperium, that the worst players can throw off the best players. And I'm not doing a perfect job of explaining this, but that's also because we're talking about like a mathematical theory that only exists in kind of a mathematical vacuum. So obviously it's not taking a lot of things into consideration.
Right. Like it doesn't take into account wind resistance. Like it doesn't have wind resistance, that kind of thing.
So the idea then just being that the more players you add to a thing, the less chance the best players have of actually being the winner. And so TI is in this weird wiggle room of like, are we going to have the best player come out of this tournament or not? And I thought this is a tough call to make. I agree to a certain extent with like the general idea of this.
Yeah.
I think TI has too many other things at play where there are obviously, it's not like you can be a terrible player and win the TI tournament Every player that's going into the semis and the knockout round, these are good players that earned their wins. They played well. But were they absolutely the best player at every table? Can you even quantify that? I don't think you can.
No, I don't think you can. And I also think that there are a lot of games that really smell a lot like the example that we have here. Look at the post. It's really, really good. The mathematics of smurfing. Check it out. Very good post. I really dig it. What I want to say about it is that what it made me think of, and this is going to be very personal to me, but it'll be fun because I'll get to kind of tell you something about my world. This reminds me of how people kind of perceive stand-up comedians, or like misperceive stand-up comedians. Yeah. Because a very good stand-up comedian, in my eyes, as somebody that spends a lot of time doing stand-up comedy and watching people do comedy, is not necessarily someone that never has a bad set, because that's basically impossible. Right. There are lots of no-win situations in comedy, even for people that are famous and established. You can go to YouTube and type in stories of comedians bombing and find all types of horrible stories.
The best comedians of in the world.
Right. Like, just having a horrible time, because basically in stand-up comedy, there are so many factors at play in any given night that it is impossible to predict, even based on your skill level at it, which I feel like is very similar to Twilight Imperium.
Yes.
You might be a skilled player, but there are going to be so many factors going into this game that your skill is not necessarily going to mean that you win. However, if we took a look at any of these players that we define as skilled and we watched them over a long period of time, I think we would see kind of if you graphed all of their performances, you would start saying, oh, this person is skilled, because when I look at all of the games overall, that randomness starts to even out to where, oh, clearly this person is a lot better than they might appear if you catch them on just one game. So I just think that this idea is very true, but it really only makes sense in one single game, which I think is great that essentially whoever wins this tournament at least won 3 games of Twilight Imperium, which I would say in some ways, just because of that gating, I think they're going to have to have been a skilled player in order to even win 3 games of Twilight Imperium. I think the skill is going to be because a player's skill is the only thing that is kind of a random factor. Everything else is random, and then there's their abilities, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
So and that is not even really what I just said does not really take down this mathematics of smurfing problem really at all. I'm simply just zooming out and being like, I do think that even though this is true on a micro level, on a macro level, you could probably say, oh, so-and-so is a good player versus somebody else's experience. Even though if you had a really weak player and a really strong player on the macro level, they could still come into a game together and the really weak player could win because of this exact type of problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit of agreement, a little bit of disagreement. Hard to say. For me, I think it really comes down to, I don't think you can quantify TI players' skill in the same way that this mathematical problem assumes you can, because there are so many different avenues that success can come from for a TI player. We've seen players that are just tactically very, very smart and make safe, smart plays constantly. And then we've seen players that are really good at manipulating the table to get away with stuff that those tactical players usually go, how are you getting away with that? That's stupid. I would never make that kind of deal.
Right.
But other good players they're not just taking advantage of bad players. Good players are making those deals too. There's this weird wiggle room where it's like, it isn't just raw mental skill. There's this gamesmanship, social aspect to it that other people can take advantage of. So there's different avenues of success.
Yeah, so. I agree. I think that's kind of what I was trying to say about the randomness. I think the randomness of TI is really much wilder than the mathematics of smurfing example gives you. and I feel like that randomness helps to even out and make it feel like generally skilled players are going to win games. I mean, it's really hard to, if this is true, it's really hard to explain why we have players that win games frequently. Right. Like, how is that possible?
Right. Yeah. It wouldn't make sense unless that they were good. Unless good players win games.
Right. I mean, let's just take even me and Matt, for example. We're super pros. How have we won so many of our streamed games?
You suck. That's horrible. All right, hey, guess what?
How have I won? How have I won so much at times and then not won other times? How is that even possible?
2 for 2. My past 2 games I've won. So that's it, 100% striking average. So that's it. That's all the numbers I'm counting.
I lost my last game, but I won the game before. What does that mean?
What does that mean?
Marine Alver, what does that mean? Tell me, what's the mathematics of am I the brown hat? Am I the white hat?
Hunter, it means you're 50% good.
I am 50% good, and this has been 50% good today, this show.
Hey, guess what? You can follow us on Twitter at SpaceCatsPod. You can see announcements as well as I played a live game this past weekend and I tweeted all about it. So if you want to see the map we played on and get a general idea of how the game went, I like to post that stuff on Twitter. You can go to our Facebook for more announcements, and you can also message us there if you ever have questions in game or out of game about TI. Go to the Twilight Imperium subreddit, reddit.com/r/Twilight Imperium for posts and discussion. I mentioned it earlier in the show, but you can find this map and lots of other maps if you go to that URL and add /wiki, WIKI/maps. And that's a really great resource if you're just not wanting to build a map and you want to grab something real fast. You can go to our Patreon. That's where you will be able to contribute to the show and be an active participant. There's all sorts of different levels where you can either be a co-producer of the show, make an episode, or you can play games with us, or just vote on upcoming episodes. You can jump on our Discord. You get some of your Patreon benefits there, as well as lots of fun conversation. We pull a lot of errata from Discord these days, so if you want to join the active conversation on Discord rather than just the sort of forum post style on Reddit, that's a great place for it. Please rate us on your podcast app of choice. Ratings on Apple Podcasts and iTunes are a really big deal in the podcast world, and it makes us look better, and it makes Twilight Imperium look better, and it gets more people playing the game, and it's just generally good for all of us, and we would appreciate it quite a lot if you upped our show a little bit, give us a 5-star rating. Hunter Donaldson, do you want to talk about your comedy at all? You got some stuff coming up?
My name's Hunter Donaldson. I'm a stand-up comedian. I work mostly in Portland, Oregon, although it looks like I have possibly some dates coming up in late May in Raleigh, North Carolina, which I'm pretty excited about, like May 22nd through 26th. So if you live in that area, go ahead and hit me up because I would love to hear from you. But as far as Portland right now, on March 6th, I will be doing You're Welcome, a show at Mississippi Pizza, which is a super cool show. That starts pretty late. I think it starts at like 9:30 or 10. Actually, I think it starts at 10. That's a really good show. Every Thursday, you can see me at Ford Food and Drink at 8 o'clock for a show called Earthquake Hurricane that I co-host with some comedians. That's super great. On March 9th, you can see me do my brunch show that I co-host with Jake Silberman. It is called Comedy Bender, and that happens at noon at The Lamp, which is a bar connected to the Aladdin Theater. And I have a very cool show on March 12th at the Doug Fur, which is a show called Cool Kids, the Cool Kids Comedy Show, which is not my favorite name for a show, but that is a really cool show, and if you know the Doug Fur, that is a really, really great venue to be playing at. Honestly, kind of above my pay grade or how good I am, really at all. So I'm very excited about that. I have no business being there, and there's nothing better than that. That's it for me.
I want to thank some Patreoners. I want to thank our Space Kitties, Yin for Life, Patience is a Virtue, Naderade, and Jim Bob. You want me to do the play of the week?
Yes, I will. I'll do it. Since you asked.
I want to start throwing this on this part. If you want to submit a play of the week, email us
spacecatspieceturtles@gmail.com. This is where I always pull the plays of the week from. So if you email us, put play in the week in the subject line, we will get it in the right place and we'll add it to our pool of plays of the week. Hunter, what do we got?
This one is from Jim B. We were playing a 3-player game. This was my second game and the other 2 players' first game. So you'll understand why things happened the way they did. This is a great intro. That is, we were all unfamiliar with all the cards and abilities that exist in the game. We did not know how to play. I was the Nalu. To my left was Hakan. To my right was Muat. So that person really didn't know how to play. Hakan and I were in range of a win in the current round. I only needed to make it to the status phase, and as the Nalu, I would score first and win. That is when I read the Imperial strategy card and realized that Hakan was going to play leadership to get her 6 command tokens for 2 points, then next turn, play Imperial to win the game. I had to take her home system. It was good that I had taken Warfare. My plan was to move a fleet next to her home system on round 1, then on round 2, play Warfare, removing the command token, and place it in her home system for a shot at taking a planet. Newbie mistake. Warfare does not allow you to do that. I was shaking my head, and I'm glad that Jim immediately addressed this. Yes. After I moved adjacent to her home system, defeating the small fleet she had there, she played leadership and acquired enough command tokens to be able to score the 2-point public objective. That is when I reread the Warfare strategy card and realized that it would take 2 rounds to get into her home system. At this point, I didn't see any way for me to keep Hakan from winning. Next, Muat played tech. We were going to play the game out, even though the outcome seemed certain. Both Hakan and I were deciding which tech to research. I didn't think it mattered, so I was going to upgrade a ship or something, maybe get Carrier 2. Hakan was looking through her tech and asked, "Hey, what does this mean?" She read the language of fleet logistics. I looked through my stack of tech cards, read the language on fleet logistics to make sure it said what I thought, and immediately changed my mind and researched fleet logistics. The rest is simple. I played Warfare, then as a second action, activated her home system, took a planet, and ultimately won the game. To this day, she keeps telling me she really won if only she had kept her mouth shut. That's such a good play of the week because of what Alex said earlier.
Exactly.
What an honorable player, just being like, I'm just having an honest question here, and I'm not thinking about how it will affect me, the answer to this question. That's great. What a good toot on everybody there. Good toot, everybody.
Good toots and good toots.
Good toots, yeah. Good toots? What?
I don't know. I gotta go.
All right, well, see you later. Goodbye. This was fun.
Thank you for listening to Space Cat's Peace Turtles, and thanks to Ben Prunty for the use of his music. You can find more at benpruntymusic.com and benprunty.bandcamp.com. Pax Magnifica, Bellum Gloriosum.